Good afternoon and welcome to Part Support and Anvils. Thank you so much for joining us today. Now, with this in mind, PAC Expo is having some technical difficulties, so we're actually recording this versus joining you live virtually. Is that a thing? So with that in mind, so again, this is actually a pre-recorded session. With that in mind, our Q&A will not be live, but do invite everyone to use your PAC Expo planner to still chat with myself as well as Jim Knutson, which leads me into an introduction. I'm Brenda Denny. I'm United Silicone's product manager, overseeing all of our heat seal products, specifically the part support and anvils that we'll talk today. United Silicone is the manufacturer as well. Joining me off camera is Jim Knutson. Jim is Business Development Manager for ISM, Industrial Specialties Manufacturing. ISM is United Silicone's partner, great partner, as well as our master distributor for all of our heat seal products worldwide, internationally. So we support your applications, not just here in North America, but also worldwide. And I know we had some of our European colleagues as well as customers scheduled to join us. Jim, you want to say a quick hello?
Hello, glad to be here. Thanks, Brenda.
And again, Jim will chime in a little bit later. We've set ourselves up to have some Q&A between Jim and myself, if you will. So Jim will chime in a little bit as we go further. So with all of that said, let's get started. Again, we're talking about part supports and anvils. Traditionally, in your rigid cup and tray applications, your part supports tend to be either rigid or metal or have some type of compliant material on them, working in conjunction with a metal head. So again, what we're talking about when we discuss a part support is the idea of getting some kind of support under the flange or the fixture, and I'm watching my camera here to make sure that you can see what I'm seeing. But you need to have support here under this flange and lip in order to make a true pressure point and contact to seal the film to the part. And some of what we'll discuss today, and as you know already, is when we talk about part support, it's not just in this outside perimeter, but it's anywhere that we need to make a seal. So it's all behind the scenes, if you will, in order to make our sealing surface up here. So that's our discussion today. And we'll talk about some of the key features. We're going to show a brief video. The video itself is going to be more of a video montage than it is a actual application. But before we lead into the video, I want to talk a little bit about theory, the theory of heat seal packaging. What I mean by theory really comes down to the idea of when to use a compliant support in this position and when to use a rigid support. And the theory that United Silicone poses is that when you're putting together your sealing tools, that you always mix and match a rigid surface together with a compliant surface. What I mean by that is if you're going to use a metal seal head on top, use a compliant or silicone surface underneath in this part support. Conversely to that is you can possibly flip that upside down. If we can't get the compliance underneath in this part support feature, we flip it up and we put the silicone on top or the compliant on top and a rigid support underneath. So when and why? Why would I do such a thing? Why do I want to put silicone underneath or compliance underneath in that bottom position? When can we do that? And it really becomes about access. When can we get access into some of the small areas of the part itself? So access to the part, but it's also access to the machine. I'm going to do some more show and tell here. So this particular part being a tray, a thermoform tray, this being a gasket part support, the idea, can we get the gasket, the part support underneath the part itself? And in this case, we can. So the idea of using the compliance underneath, because it's in the most friendly position of the application. So if we can get access to the part with the compliance support underneath, go for it. If you can't, that's when we start to look at different alternatives. Let's go ahead and go to the video. We'll go into, as I mentioned, it's more of a photo montage showing a couple different versions of gaskets or unbonded part supports as well as bonded supports. And then we'll come back to some more of my show and tell. Jim, if you could go ahead and start the video for us.
Okay.
Okay. What do you think? Again, lots of different photos, photo montage of different types of part supports. Very familiar or very common are the gasket portion, gasket type part supports. Here's one that's very long, very large, doesn't quite fit into my camera. The idea and some of the differences that you'll see on the United Silicone side, and here's a smaller one here, is the idea our manufacturing process, it's a compression molding process versus an extrusion process. So our gaskets, when we're going unbonded, our gaskets are a continuous shape or a continuous form, if you will, versus an extruded piece or a length. And I'm going to turn here for a moment. I don't have any here in front of me, but you're all very familiar with extruded lengths where you'll chase around a piece and you end up with a meeting point or a parting line, if you will, that results in leakers. The benefit to United Silicone's process, it truly allows us to manufacture a continuous gasket. So there's no separation point, no meeting point that would result in a leaker itself. Another type of part support that you saw in the video, and heavy, is actually a silicone bonded nest support. So the idea here is this silicone is chemically bonded to this metal foundation or the metal fixture. And if we were live in person in Chicago, you would be picking this up and picking at the corners. And it's not going to peel off. So the key to remember here is it's not an unbonded gasket that's been glued to or used adhesive to attach it to the foundation itself. United Silicone is providing this entire piece to you, coming ready, assembled, and the part is truly bonded instead of glued to the part itself. And you'll see many features in this particular piece. I'm going to show and tell here. Here's a feature that's actually been molded into this part support for the lip of the cup in this situation, in addition to the pin pieces here for location. So as the cups are loaded into the fixture, it's actually being oriented for you. And then the pre-cut films are also being oriented based on the tab that will seal here. So we've truly provided part support around the entire piece. In that part support, it's precision, if you will, because it's been molded that way. It's not machined after the fact, it's actually molded that way. As I look at my notes to make sure that we've caught some of the highlights for you. So we've talked about gaskets, we've talked about bonded, the chemically bonded pieces. What we haven't really touched on is, what makes United Silicone's materials better or different than others. And it's truly back to time, temperature, and pressure of the process. and that the materials are formulated for that they can handle it. And not all industrial materials can. Viton, for instance, is not made for pressure. Viton or some of the industrial materials, they are going to become gummy and sticky under the pressure of the process. Temperature. In this particular position, as a part support position, is not necessarily heated, although some machines, some applications do have a heated nest and can do that. But the process itself has temperature. The process coming from the top has temperature. So it's important that the materials you're using underneath the process are also heat tolerant, that they're temperature tolerant. Materials such as urethane. Urethane will give you compliance, but they have a melt temp about 140F, 160F. United Silicones materials are tolerant to 550F. And I believe if I put on my European hat, that's about 288C for those joining us there. So again, whether it's the part support piece of your application you're looking at or the metal seal head itself, you really need to select tools that will facilitate the process of heat seal, time, temperature, and pressure. Going to kind of throw it over to Jim a little bit for some of the Q&A that we put together, being that we're not in a live chat situation at the moment, but some of the key Q&A that you may have asked if you were joining us. Jim, what do you have for us? Okay. What might I not have covered?
Thanks, Brenda. First question, can bonded supports be recoated?
Definitely. And what Jim means by recoating, back to this heavy fixture here, you can see there's an awful lot of machining in the fixture. We talked about the part locating. If we flip it upside down, you can see the different screw holes location for mounting to your machine. There's an awful lot of machining in here. The last thing we want to do is throw this out when the silicone wears out. And it will. It is a consumable. So over time or over a long period of time, it will take compression. What you do at that point is you send the entire unit back to United Silicone. We actually strip the silicone, we re-prep the metal so that we can get that strong bond, and then we remold it using the tool or the actual mold to come back to the configuration. Then we ship it back to you. And the price or the cost of that is only the price of the covering itself. You're not reinvesting in that metal foundation. What else do you have for me,
Good.
Jim?
Thank you. Do you have FDA material?
We do. And again, the idea, even though in this position, the material is not coming in contact, typically does not come in contact with your food or the package itself. We've talked about the flange because now we're underneath. But despite that, United Silicone does offer FDA materials. We do also have 3A dairy materials. 3A dairy is actually a level above FDA with the idea it's FDA, but then it's also passed what's called a drip test for dairy. If water drips off the silicone, it's not exuding bad stuff for you. So yes.
Thank you, Brenda. We appreciate the detail you went into. And I think it's about time for us to wrap up and point you in the direction we'd like you to go.
So we're in wrap-up mode. So again, thank you all for joining us today. As I mentioned, we would have loved to have been in Chicago and be live, but we're not. And so we're making the best of this. Please utilize your chat function, your instant chat function on your planner with the idea that this is a pre-recorded session at this point due to the technical difficulties. But with that mentioned, you can go to your planner and still chat with both Jim and me, and we can answer your questions. We truly welcome the opportunity to review your specific projects and applications. With that said, we do have some other demos scheduled throughout the week. Again, they are on our planner, on our I want to call it a website, but on our show planner, if you will. We do have some other demos, so please come back and join us. Have a great day.